So we are here today with Rosemary Gladstar coming up from Vermont, you said.
Yes.
Yeah, all the way up to Northeast Washington for the Thrivalist Fair. And it was just such an honor to hear you speak here and do your nature walk. I'm so sorry I missed it. I really wish I could have made it.
We were teaching at the same time.
Yes.
It made it impossible.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
So now Rosemary here, she has been an expert in the field of wild edibles and herbs and natural medicines for a very long time. So being a naturalist and wanting to learn more about different herbs and different wild edibles and the different uses of that, expand my repertoire, it was amazing to be able to sit and listen to all those different things.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So what would you say is your favorite thing about this experience so far and the Thrivalist Fair as a whole?
Oh, yeah. So this is really unusual for me. I'm usually teaching at herbal gatherings where, big herbal events across the country. And so partly why I came is my sister lives close to here and she invited me. So that was one reason, family. Yeah. But the other is I really enjoy being around different people, and especially people that might be presenting information really differently than I am aware of or know. So I was excited, and it also is very expansive for me. I have my own kind of set views and ideas about things. And I think one of the problems that we see today is that we're so polarized, right? Without really respectfully listening and learning. So this was a really great opportunity for me to kind of expand that. And, what I find is really what I find everywhere I travel in the world. Very kind people. And different ideas, and that we just all need to learn to listen to each other respectfully again.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you're coming from Vermont, and I know you've also traveled worldwide to see all the different plants and teach a lot of different locations. And something that we would teach in SEER school is worldwide edibles. Yeah. And so I thought it was really cool that in your PowerPoint, you talked about plantain, you talked about dandelion, you talked about the nettle. There was just a lot of St. John's wort, right? Things that we can find universally. And so how different was it for you coming out here to the Pacific Northwest and seeing the edibles out here?
Right. Well, so I grew up in Northern California. Okay. And lived there till I was in my late 30s. So I spent half my life there and then another 35 years in Vermont. So coming back actually to the Pacific Northwest, these plants are familiar to me, but my memory isn't quite as keen as when I was here looking at them all the time. So I'm looking at old friends, plants that I've known, and kind of re-familiarizing myself. But the thing that's a key that I know you know as well is when you learn these basic weedy plants, and here we're not talking so much about those plants that are native to different bioregions. It's plants that are universally found, the weedy plants. There's often our best medicine and our best foraging food as well. So we do find plants like the ones you were mentioning, dandelion, nettle, plantain, burdock, and on and on. The list is very long. You find them in almost every temperate region that you travel in around the world. And that's kind of cool because these plants are always there for medicine, for food. And also, I might say, it's like finding old friends. I get really excited when I see dandelion and burdock and plantain. And yeah, so
it was very enlightening to me because, I knew that dandelion was edible, but I had no idea how medicinal and how helpful it was and how it can be like a favorite among medicinal plants for experts in the field.
Yeah, totally. In fact, if you were to sum up maybe the 10 most popular medicinal plants that are used in Western Europe, so again, the temperate regions of the world, dandelion and plantain, some of these really common plants that we've spoken about, are in that top 10, top 15 because one is they're widely available. The other is that they have a long history of being used and a big safety net as well. But they're very effective and they're very powerful. And many of those plants were actually brought here consciously, intentionally by the early settlers. They're not native to the North American continent. Most of those plants, they were brought over because they were food and medicine and rigorous and hardy. They would grow.
That's cool.
So yeah, it is
very
cool.
Nice.
Even like a plant like Queen Anne's lace, which we think of as kind of a native wild weedy plant now, it was consciously brought over. It's a precursor of carrot, the cultivated carrots. It's got a very edible root. It's also very medicinal. It's delicious and it's beautiful. It brought beauty as well.
Yeah. That's really awesome.
It's great.
So cool. If you were to give out your short list of your favorite, like worldwide, that's also in this area, I know you mentioned several already. Is there any others that you would add to that list and say that this is the best out here?
Yeah, so yarrow is definitely one.
Yeah,
yarrow is like kind of a first aid kit in a plant,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And has a wide range of uses. And like I always say, it's specific for certain things. It's not like a secondary medicine. It's going to work.
Right, yeah.
So yarrow I would definitely add. Some of the tree medicine, like pine, which grows everywhere, is a major plant medicine. It's hardly used in this country, but
sure.
you travel throughout any of the European countries, it's a major herb in the pharmacies for coughs and colds and flus, as an antiviral, antiseptic. And it's really good and tasty, and it's sustainable. It just grows everywhere. Plus, the pine pollen from the pine is also incredibly expensive if you buy it. And all you have to do is, in the springtime, you shake it into a bag, you collect tons of it, and it's free. So
that's cool.
You have a incredibly nourishing plant, and then also one that's really used for health and well-being. Yeah. So that's another one. I don't think we mentioned the burdock, but burdock is another plant I love, mostly as a food. It's definitely a good medicine as well. It's another herb that we use for digestion in the liver, but it's just delicious. Like that. Have you eaten it? That fresh dandelion root?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Arctium lapa, which is our common wild burdock, is actually cultivated as a food in Asia. And in Japanese, really gourmet Japanese restaurants, if you go, you order gobo root. It's Arctium lapa. It's the same species.
How about that?
As the wild burdock. So it's another really great one.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and the list can go on. We talked about St. John's wort, another really excellent plant. Yeah. Fireweed. Going everywhere.
Oh, fireweed,
Fireweed is so delicious.
Saw that a lot in Alaska too whenever I traveled up there.
And all throughout the Pacific Northwest. It's just a great plant. So
yeah. Really terrific. Cool. So I had a question for you. If somebody is thinking about expanding their knowledge in wild edibles, but they're not, super familiar with them, what kind of like beginner tips do you have for people who want to get out there and venture and try new things and enter into that world?
Study with you.
Okay.
But I would say, one of the things I always say with foraging is absolutely anybody's interested. It's just, it's so rewarding on so many levels. And just knowing nature, getting to know nature, because we're so, disconnected oftentimes from nature. So just getting out there and getting to learn those plants is such an incredible way of connecting. But I always caution people to learn, before you go foraging, to learn those plants in your bioregion that are toxic.
Right.
And thankfully, unlike mushrooms, it's really a small number of plants. Like in the mushroom, in mycology, you have to learn a lot before you're safe. But in Plant ID, we have in an area like this 4 or 5 really toxic plants that you have to be mindful of. So that would be one thing. Know your toxic plants before you forage. And then just learn 3 or 4 really simple plants that are so common. And so I would say that, start by learning just a few. And the other is, I feel it's really, really important for all of us who are venturing into outside our garden gates to collect things, is to do so in a sustainable way, because there are so many thousands of us out there foraging and gathering. So even common plants, we can overharvest. So having that consciousness that there's plenty for everyone, so long as we're thoughtful and sensitive and thinking about these plant populations as, gardens that we need to tend, actually. So
okay, excellent. Well, right on. Well, we sure appreciate you traveling all the way from Vermont.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to listen to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Can I have a hug?